Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight, especially Professor Freeman for being willing to talk to our prospective students. My name is Julia Seleni. I'm one of the assistant directors here at Hobart and William Smith. I will be monitoring the chat during this Zoom session, so if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, or if you'd like to just unmute yourself and ask yourself, we can also do that. So I'm going to hand it over to Professor Freeman to introduce herself, and we'll get things started.
Hey, everybody. I'm super excited to be with you and to talk to you today. So first thing, I want to encourage you to turn your cameras on so it feels like I'm actually talking to you. I understand if you can't, it's fine too, but it would be great if I could actually see the folks that I'm talking to. Our session today is going to be mostly question and answer, so I'd like it to be as conversational as we can. As Julia just mentioned, I'm Kendra Freeman. I'm the chair of sociology here. I'm also the chair of data analytics. And I've been working at the colleges for about 12 years. So I've been here a while. And my jam, the stuff I really like to do is work across the curriculum. So I'm firmly located in the social sciences. I'm a sociologist, but I work with people in the humanities, people in the interdisciplinary programs, people in the fine arts, and people in the natural sciences. So what I want to talk to you about today is what social science is and how HWS can kind of get at how the questions you have and the ways that we might help you find answers or new ways to explore. So when we talk about the social sciences, just in case you're in a place where you're not really sure, when we talk about the social sciences, we're talking about academic disciplines that study humans and study society. So I'm a sociologist. What that means is that I study how institutions like family, education, or government shape the decisions that individuals make. Like, how does where we go to school shape the choices we make? And how individuals can shape and form those institutions too. Particularly, I'm really interested in how schools and schooling impacts kids differently depending on their race, class, and gender. The way that I study that is by really engaging with my nerd side. So I'm a statistician. So I use really big data sets and to ask questions and figure out how institutions are shaping kids' lives differently. But that's not the only thing social scientists do. Social scientists study anything that has to do with humans and the ways that they interact with different parts of society. So what I would like to do tonight is to, in order to kind of maximize our time here, is for you to ask me questions about what you're interested in. So this doesn't, you don't have to be interested in a discipline, but what are you curious about? What are you looking to do in college? And I'm more than happy to show you the different ways that HWS can help you in that pursuit. So if you have a question, unmute yourself, go ahead and ask it, or you can type it in the chat and Julia can tell me about it too.
So I'll kick things off with a question. So freshman seminars is the only class that students are required to take here at HWS. So could you tell us a little bit about different freshman seminars in the social sciences?
Sure. So the FSEMs are really rad, and I know you've probably heard about this from everywhere, all over the place. But they really give you a chance to get used to college and to explore a topic that you're interested in with a really small group of people. So the FSEMs are capped at 14 to 16 students, and they're taught by a professor who created the class around one of their own interests. So, for instance, in my department in sociology, we have 3 FSEMs that are running. One's about cars, one's about victims and survivors of violence, and one's about social class. And so it just varies widely depending on what people are interested in. In your FSEM, you might do something as concrete as form a research project around a question about social class locations. Or you might visit one of the dealerships in Geneva to talk about how foreign cars are different from American cars and the ways that that has implications for how people live their lives. If you move out of my department and you move into the education department, for instance, they're going to have you in schools and with kids. So they're actually going to have you participating in schooling to kind of see what it's like. The FSEM environment though isn't one that's super high stakes. So you're not doing the kind of academic work that you're doing is not the same level as you're doing in your other first year classes. The real key here is that we want to get you used to college and we want to get you used to asking questions in the social sciences, we want you to get used to asking questions about people and how they live and how they make choices.
Yeah, thank you for answering that. And I want to encourage everybody again, if you want to ask a question, but you don't want to unmute yourself, you can of course just send it in the chat and I can read it off for you as well. Um, so feel free to do that whenever. Another thing that's really big here at HWS is study abroad. So 60% of our students do study abroad. And I know that commonly we'll have faculty lead abroad excursions. Could you talk about some that you know of from the past that have in the social sciences that we've had?
Sure. So I'll start again with sociology and education because those are the two programs that I know the best, especially with the study abroad program. So right now, one of the sociologists who I work with is studying abroad in Rome with a group of 16 students who are studying urban space and planning and the ways in which Rome constructs spaces in order to achieve particular outcomes. So he's leading that program. They'll be coming back in a couple of weeks. Another sociologist brings a group of students to Vietnam to study food and culture. Then the education department brings students to New Zealand to study comparatively what education looks like in New Zealand compared to what it looks like here. And so students actually do a field placement in New Zealand to kind of compare the two. A program that we share across the social sciences is the Galway program. When students go to Galway, they're taking classes at a university there while also learning about Irish culture and life. And we share that between sociology and econ.
That's very cool. Actually, one of our other assistant directors of admissions studied abroad in Ireland and then loved it so much that she moved there for a year and got her master's in Galway. So very cool. We do have some questions coming in through the chat. Can you talk about the psychology program?
Sure. So the psychology program at HWS it does that straddling thing I was talking about. It straddles the boundary between the natural sciences and the social science. And so the psychology program offers both a bachelor's of science and a bachelor's of arts degree. The bachelor of science degree requires some more engagement with the natural sciences. So you're taking some other biology and chemistry courses. And the reason why the psychology program has placed itself at that interdisciplinary nexus is because we have a really strong neuroscience program located within the psychology. And so they're really able to bridge the gap. But in that program, you're going to take a methods and a statistics sequence together, where you're going to learn not just how to be a psychologist, but you're also going to develop and do a psychology project on your own. And then as you progress hierarchically through it, you're going to specialize within a particular dimension within psychology. So sensation and perception tends to be the more natural sciencey one, but then there's social psychology and there's psychotherapy and one other one that's slipping my mind right now too. But so you get the general approach, and then it's where you're kind of getting a broad approach about all of psychology. The methods help you shape your questions, and then you narrow back down into a particular focus as you move through the curriculum and become in your third and fourth year here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Our next question, what does research in anthology, sociology, and psychology look like?
So different. But the first thing to take from this is that there are research opportunities for students in all three of those programs. Sometimes the research opportunities happen within the school year, within your coursework. So like I just mentioned with psychology, the psychology students are always doing research projects within their methods curriculum. The sociology students are also doing research projects within their methods classes and in their senior capstone. The anthropology students, the research happens more often in the summer, where students are actually working with a faculty member and getting paid to stay on campus with lodging to work on that faculty member's project. Sociology has been known to do that too. I'm not sure about psychology, but that program we have a really generous program at HWS that funds student research during the summer that can be either faculty driven or student driven. So yesterday, I met with a psychology major who's really interested in studying at the intersection of biology and psychology. So she's really interested in looking at how a certain cancer treatment impacts mental health. And so what she's doing, that's not a professor's project, that's hers. And so she's using some of that summer research funding to actually work on that project with an advisor during the summer. She'll be here all summer doing that project on her own. In sociology, we have two students who are working with one of the sociologists here to collect data on Geneva, the city we live in, to answer some questions about how Geneva is changing over time and which group of people it's serving better.
Yeah, the research aspect that we do here at HWS is so interesting. Could you tell us a little bit more about different research that students have done, and maybe if they've gone to like different states or countries to do that research and what that would look like?
Sure. So last summer, one of my advisees, Natalie Sandoval, applied to the Natural Science Foundation based on her methods training that she got in sociology, applied to the National Science Foundation and went to Rwanda to study reproductive rights for women in Rwanda. So she went with another sociologist that isn't HWS related, but her HWS skills got her the position, and went and studied for 6 weeks there with that faculty member. Another advisee of mine went to Belize and studied how the pollution in the ocean that coming off of cruise ships affected the local economy for villages that were primarily tourist based. And so those students are not only doing this independent research during the summer, but they're bringing it back and building on it independently when they get back to HWS. Internally, I've advised several honors projects that have worked on secondary data analysis, like the kind of thing I do. So they've looked at big data sets to analyze how kids learn differently over time. And they've been able to write those projects into a long paper that eventually gets them into graduate school. So two of them are in graduate programs. One of another project that I was an outside advisor on got published 3 months ago in a journal. It was her undergraduate thesis, and it got published in a journal about urban space and inequality. And she's a second-year PhD student at Rutgers. So there's lots of different opportunities, both domestically and internationally, as well as in the school year and outside of the school year, for you to do your own research or to work on us with ours. You can get published, you can produce independent honors projects, and then you can turn that into something that gets you an outcome after you graduate, whether that's graduate school or helps you get a job.
Yeah, that is so awesome. And I want to encourage you guys again, if you want to ask a question, feel free to unmute yourself and do that. Or if you'd like to just send it to me in the chat, that's also fine.
I have a
So,
question. Oh, sorry.
oh yes, go right
Yeah,
ahead.
okay. So I have a friend who is interested in neuroscience. Could you talk a little bit more about that within psychology, please?
Yeah, sure. So the part of neuroscience that I know the most about at HWS, which is over in another field, so it's over on the other side of the street. I don't work with the neuroscientists very much, but the part of the neuroscience program that I know the most about, I think it's an independent major here. So it's something that is established, but not as like a department on its own. But it brings together biologists and psychologists to study how the brain functions and changes. So on the biology side, I was just in a presentation for that a senior neuroscientist was doing her senior presentation yesterday. And she was talking about how different gene expressions can shape different transmissions in the brain that impact an expression of eyesight. So it like impacts how somebody sees. And she's actually been doing this research on flies for the past 6 months. So herself, not somebody else, has been doing this research on changing the gene expression in flies to watch how their evolution changes in order to bring that to a different conclusion and like broaden it out to humans. So it's really cool just kind of getting in on the ground floor about watching how certain gene expressions can shift and change with human applications, but she's starting with flies. She brought them to the presentation, so we got to look at them. It was great.
Another really great program that we have here is our guaranteed internship program. Could you tell us a little bit about different internships that students in the social sciences have done in the past?
Yeah, so one thing about the social sciences outside of psychology that people really don't know about is they're like, okay, what do I do with that? Like, is this one of these degrees that like my parents aren't gonna like, right? Like, what do I do? And I want to tell you that like a degree in the social science can get you a job in anything. And one of the ways that we make you really competitive that way, or one of the ways that HWS makes you really competitive is by getting you internships and to show you how you can apply those fields. So my students in sociology and data analytics are working for nonprofit policy organizations, kind of figuring out what kind of policy implementations are the most effective. They're working for schools, they're working for HR departments, they're working for social workers, they're working for policy makers, not just policy analysts. They're working for government. They're doing all kinds of, they're law clerks. They're doing all kinds of internships to kind of see how broadly they can apply their fields. Some of them are interns at investment banks and things like that too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions maybe about different courses? Anything that you want to throw in the chat, please feel free, or if you again want to unmute yourself and ask yourself, that's also fine.
One thing that I will say about the guaranteed internship is that because HWS is such a, it's not a super huge school, it means that I know the folks at Career Services and they know me. And so we really have a tight connection in order to really get a student placed where they need to get placed in order to like explore what they're really interested in. So I'm working with them right now with somebody who wants to be a school counselor, and we're trying to get her into two different types of schools, an elementary school and high school, so that she can really see what the different types of jobs look like. And I can just pick up the phone and call them, or I can just walk over there and talk to them, and they know exactly who I'm talking about because we have such a strong relationship with our students and between staff and faculty.
Yeah, the internship program is absolutely wonderful. And we also offer a $3,000 stipend as well. So if your internship is unpaid or underpaid, you do get funding as well.
So that way, if you really want an internship with a nonprofit that doesn't have any money, HWS can supplement that so that you can still do that.
Yeah, do we have any other questions that we're wondering?
So one other thing that I do want to make sure we talk about is the interdisciplinarity of the social sciences. So I mentioned that I'm the chair of data analytics, which is a new program on campus. And it's not a typical data science program where you could like major in data science and all you learn about is data science and how to manipulate, collect, and produce data. What it is it's a supplement to a major that shows you a different way of thinking about and organizing the information that you learn. And those type of partnerships exist all over the place here. So in the social sciences, data analytics is a big one, but so is public policy. Public policy is a partnership between 4 different departments on campus that just notice that each of us are talking about public policy in our courses, but we don't have a place for our students to like center and only talk about policy. And so now there's a really active minor on campus that supports these other majors. So like right next to me, when I walked in today, I saw the chair of public policy, who this office is right next to me. So it kind of works the same way for these other areas of interest that you might otherwise kind of be isolated. At HWS, you can kind of do them all.
Awesome. Please feel free to send more in the chat if you guys are still wondering about anything. Oh, okay, we got a couple. Can you tell us more about the Galway experience?
Sure. So the Galway program is one of our I would say like one of our hallmark of study abroad programs. When one of us leads the Galway program, what that means is we take 14 to 15 of you to Galway, and you take 2 classes at a local university, and then we take a 3rd class with you. So we're all taking it together, and your 4th class is one that's taught by us. So if I was going to lead the study abroad program in Galway, we'd probably look at like comparative policy and ethnicity, right? So we can compare Ireland to the United States and think about how different policies shape identity differently. Another professor that's led Galway taught a religion in Ireland class while he was there. But the course that we all take together is Irish life and culture. And so we're really immersed into what life is like in Ireland, and we learn it together and study together and eat together and celebrate holidays together. And on weekends, you get to explore and do what you will. But we spend a lot of time together building community and learning about the place that your 2 independent courses can be in your major. So those courses could be econ courses, they could be math courses, they could be sociology courses. And those generally, depending on the conversation you have with your advisor before and after you get back, count for your major.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The next question, what are some of the most unique courses offered in the social sciences?
That's a great question. And this is like recency bias because I'm just thinking about courses that have been offered in the recent past. So a great course that's being offered next semester is called The Politics of Reproduction, which you might think is just a course on like a policy conversation about reproduction, but it's not. It's actually an interdisciplinary course between a biologist and a sociologist. And so you get these wildly different perspectives on what reproduction is and how it gets classified and how we think about sex and gender from 2 different perspectives every single class period. Sometimes you're doing lab experiments, sometimes you're analyzing change in policy over time. There's another class called Alcohol Use and Abuse, which is taught by a chemist and a sociologist. And that class is looking at trends in alcohol use in college students over time and the interventions that have been more or less effective, and the social changes that have led to different ways that students participate in alcohol culture. Students in that class often are interviewing other students at HWS about their alcohol use and then analyzing that data to produce a report at the end of class. Those are 2 I can think of right off the top of my head.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have any other questions that we'd like to throw into the chat or ask out loud? History or political science? Could you just throw in a little more in exactly what you mean by that?
Sure. So the political science department now has bifurcated into 2 different degrees. So you could earn a degree in international relations or a degree in politics. And so the degree in politics really focuses concretely on the United States. So we're looking at American political theory, methodology, and kind of traditional political science. We're looking at American presidency and different ways and different types of policies and how they've shifted over time. The history department is the world is your oyster. They have specialists who study African history, Latin American history, American history, South American history. And there's 2 historians who study history of Asia. So they really have a comparative approach to how they approach the discipline and talk about it. The history department in particular is really active in bringing external scholars to campus to not just give talks, but also meet in small groups with students to explore new historical topics. One of the projects that I'm really interested in right now with the history department is that they're starting to think methodologically in more quantitative ways, so with numbers. And they're starting to think about how to quantify different aspects of history as a field. And so they're working with the data analytics folks to kind of think about how to teach quantitatively and also how we can think about history both qualitatively through words and quantitatively through numbers. So they're a super active department that's actively changing. Well, if you have more questions, you can email me and I'd love to answer them. My email address is kefreeman@hws.edu. So if you have any more questions that you'd like to ask about any of those programs, just let me know and I'm happy to answer them. I'm sure Julia would be too.
Yes, I'm actually throwing our emails into the chat as we speak. So if any questions come up that you're wondering, please feel free to either email Professor Freeman or you can email myself anytime that you think of anything that we want to throw out last minute. Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone so much for being here tonight, especially Professor Freeman for taking the time to meet with us tonight and talk about the social sciences at HWS. We appreciate it so much. And I also want to throw it out there that if you guys have any questions as well about any admissions related questions, about next steps in your admissions process, please feel free to reach out to our office anytime. We're always happy to connect and answer any questions. But thank you all so much for signing on tonight. And I hope that everybody has a lovely evening tonight.